one of the main things is that my younger by 2 minutes daughter Claire said, like, Daddy, when after you retire, you should play tennis on every public tennis court in Los Angeles. I was like, yeah, good idea. I'll store
So
that.
tips from the kids. Yeah.
I thought it was pretty loony. But then it got to be like this time, like a year ago, and I didn't have to do lesson plans. I didn't have to set up my classroom just right to make it perfect for that one moment. I didn't have to do anything. So I was like, I know what I'll do. I'll go start playing tennis on every public tennis court in LA County. So thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for joining the Falling for Learning podcast. I am TD Flinnaw, a National Board Certified Educator and parent who is on a mission to ensure that parents have the strategies, resources, and skills needed to make sure that they know how to get their kids on track for learning and to stay on track for success. Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. We have Mark Gozonsky, and he is a veteran educator and a writer, and he's going to give some information and insight as a parent and educator about how to make sure that students are falling in love with learning.
Wow, I'm going to do that? I can't wait. I can't wait to find out how we're going to do that.
So go ahead and give us an overview of like your career and what you're doing now.
Sure. So I'm a retired teacher. I taught for 20 years, about 10 of them as a elementary school teacher, and then 10 as a high school English teacher. And I retired a year ago, and you and I were just doing an impromptu celebration of my feelings about how I feel about not going back to school this year. And I'll recreate that moment for you right now. It went a little something like this. To be honest.
All right.
Yeah, amid all the joy, I also I reflect upon my years as a teacher with I mean, why not? Why not feel joy now? It's not going to change anything. But I know I learned a lot as a teacher. I learned a ton as a teacher, and I think that's one of the good signs. That's a promising sign when the teacher's learning something. At least somebody's learning something. And one person in that room is getting something out of the experience, and I pretty much always was. I remember caring passionately about what I was doing, and I think that's another good indicator. That might be almost enough about me. You asked like what I'm up to nowadays.
Yeah. So what are you doing now?
Yeah. Well, I've always been writing, and I was writing and publishing throughout my teaching career. I think that's ramped up a bit. I have a regular gig writing feature stories for the LA Times now. So that's been a great case of what I planned on actually happening. Because as I was retiring from teaching, people asked me, well, like, what are you going to do next? And I said, I'm going to be a journalist.
All right.
Sure enough, here I am.
Okay, so I have been following a little bit about what you've been doing. And so it goes right in hand with falling in love with learning, because one of the things that you've been doing is going throughout the city of Los Angeles. And can you tell us about your latest project?
I'll tell you a little bit about the project that I've been working on. In general, it's an amazing opportunity. It's just like, Mark, we want you to go around Los Angeles and tell us what you think and feel about what you see when you go there. I'm like, yes, I am just the right person for that, because I'm always going around all over Los Angeles. I'm always thinking and feeling stuff. I'm very sensitive. So Originally, the first piece I wrote for the Times was about my quest to play tennis on every public tennis court in Los Angeles.
All right. Wait a minute. How many are there? Do you know?
There are quite a few. I'm not counting high school courts
Okay, not high school.
because of some, I don't know, partly out of convenience, because that would just be too many. That would be fucking difficult. It was partly out of convenience, and then I decided to try to prop that up by saying, like, well, people who don't belong on high school or are on school grounds shouldn't be going on school grounds.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. If you go there on the weekend, like, why not? Like, no one else is around. But anyway, that was my choice. I'm just doing the park courts. And there's
Okay.
plenty of them. There's like 240 of those, and I'm up to 110.
All
So
right.
I'm almost halfway there. It's been a lot of tennis courts, and that's good because otherwise I would just be sitting around asking my wife if it was time for lunch. So I go around to all these tennis courts, and I take almost exclusively public transit, or I ride my bike, which is another big part of the puzzle. I do feel kind of like my commute has become my job, because sometimes it'll take me like 2.5 hours to get to these places. Like,
So wait, you're traveling 2 hours or what? Okay, wow. And then back again, correct?
you got to.
So you got yourself another full-time gig.
Yeah. So that's a lot of interaction. It's a lot of interaction with the sort of the built landscape of Los Angeles, and it's a lot of interaction, very low key, and not eyeballing anybody. But you do see a lot of people. There's a lot of people watching.
Right.
And if you ever, like, I wish I had some situation where I could feel some combination of, like, oh my God, and compassion. Like, right, hop on a bus, or better yet, hop on the metro, because you'll see a lot of things.
So just to go back to this, like we talked about, this is a falling for learning, and about how to, ways to explore. So first of all, we know it's about exploration and like the freedom to explore. So tell us about like tennis, like what made you decide to do this tennis journey?
There's a lot of things behind tennis. One of the main things is that my younger by 2 minutes daughter Claire said, like, Daddy, when after you retire, you should play tennis on every public tennis court in Los Angeles. I was like, yeah, good idea. I'll store
So
that.
Tips from the kids, yeah.
I thought it was pretty loony. But then it got to be like this time, like a year ago, and I didn't have to do lesson plans. I didn't have to set up my classroom just right to make it perfect for that one moment. I didn't have to do anything. So I was like, I know what I'll do. I'll go start playing tennis on every public tennis court in LA County. So thank you always to Claire for giving me this great idea, without which, I would really, be scratching my head for, like, what am I supposed to be doing?
Is this typical of your like relationship with your kids? Like, they suggest you do things and you give them, like, you'll like follow it or give them the freedom to explore different adventures when they were younger?
Well, I better give them freedom to explore now, because they're 28 years old. 28? Yeah. I think they made it past the treacherous 27. So they're 28, so they better be doing, living their adult lives. But as they were coming up, my wife and I were pretty notorious among our friend set for being like, you're letting your kids do what? But they did pretty well. They did fine as free range children. And just getting back to myself and learning. Yeah, man, I'm learning a lot. I learned, like, I learned that the mountains in East LA, they're like right there. It's been really good for getting out of my West Side bubble. Because you experience things on the West Side, you're like, oh, that ocean breeze sure is nice. But then, you get out to the West Side and you're like, I didn't even know that there were hills in Monterey Park, but there are. They're nice, low rolling hills, and if you get up on top of them, you can see clear down to Long Beach. And it's just like, who knew? I don't know, just all these places where all these people live. Like millions of people live in, Covina and West Covina. You got people living down there in Long Beach. I discovered Long Beach is part of LA County. Did you know that?
Okay. Yes,
You
I
did
did.
know that? Okay, I didn't know.
Absolutely. So yeah, I grew up in Pomona. So I think it's
Oh,
like the first, no, sorry,
yeah, that is.
I did not grow up in Pomona. I was born in Pomona. So you got to be clear about that. Born in Pomona. So I know like the county boundaries. I'm like, that's the end of
I
that county.
played,
That's
I
the
played
end
in
of
Claremont. I'm sorry to talk over you, but I'm gonna anyway. I
Go
played
for
in
it.
Claremont. That's the furthest east I've been.
Yes, yes. So that one, Pomona is not as quite as far as Claremont. That's the one. Yes, 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 yes. Um, yep. So I do know. So so you're doing the LA County. I know you're writing for the Los Angeles Times, and they're doing LA County. So I didn't know.
Because what
I
are you
was
gonna
thinking.
do? What are you gonna? Are you gonna leave out Pasadena? Are you gonna leave out Compton? I don't think so.
So
You
the
got
whole county. So
yeah.
that's great. So we have 110 that you've gotten to so far. How many more do you anticipate doing?
I asked my wife if I had to do them all. She said, "You better."
She's going to hold you to your word. Okay. All right. So it sounds like, so just taking it back to our parents and falling in love with learning, we have exploration and it's very low cost, right? So maybe your
Yeah.
kids may not, like the parents listening, maybe their kids aren't going to do the tennis courts, but it might be another part of their city or their town that they'll find everything, or they'll just search different places. And that could be a way to explore and fall in love with learning.
I would put a plug
That
in. I would put in a plug for like a park in
okay.
a part of town that's not like the park your go-to park.
Another park that's not part outside of
Yeah.
your area. That's a good
Just
idea. Yeah,
different park
it could
because
take
there's a bunch of
transfer.
them. And
Hmm.
the LA Times has a lot of parks material. So if you're like, I don't know any parks to go to, like type in Parks LA Times. I wrote a different piece I wrote was based on one of my uh, well, not one of my all-time best teaching lesson, which was about loafing.
Okay.
There's
Yes.
that Walt Whitman poem, Song of Myself, where he goes, I lean and loaf and invite my soul, and goes on and on beautifully, remarkably.
Yes.
Uh,
I
but
read that
anyway,
piece.
I was like, let's stop there, guys. What does it mean to loaf? They're like, we don't know, mister. Why don't you tell us? I was like, I have a better idea. They're like, no, you don't. We hate all your better ideas. So I was like, no, listen, this time it's good. Let's go out and let's just loaf. And they're like, I was like, no, you'll like it. You'll like it this time, I promise. So we would go out and we had this huge lawn at the high school where I did most of my high school teaching, grand arts. Hey,
Okay.
grand arts. Anyway, huge lawn, and we would just go out. I was like, okay, let's just loaf. And they were like, what's that? I was like, just do nothing. You can look at the clouds. You can look at bugs in the grass. You can just talk to each other. You can take your ease. They're like, really? I was like, watch me. And so I would lean against a tree and just let them loaf for 10 minutes. And then I would be like, that's it, back to class. We have to write about loafing now. If we don't write about it, then there's no justification for it. And it's just bad teaching. But if you do something and then you come back and you write about it, that's good teaching. So it's just that little adjustment. That's all you have to do. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
do something and then write about it. Anyways, they loved loafing. When I gave them when I asked them for feedback, when I bravely asked them for feedback at the end of a semester and said, like, what do you think you're going to remember about this? They would say loafing. Like if it was a bar graph, like this would be loafing and like everything else we did would
The
be
favorite
we
thing for
did some
the
cool stuff.
students.
We made scale models of Moby Dick and hung them from the ceiling. We did like Orwell's World, which was an amusement park based on 1984. I thought all of that stuff was great. And they were like, we'd rather you just tell us the answers. I was like,
Hello, parents and caregivers. Join us every Wednesday for our Well Educated Wednesdays on Instagram Live from 5:30 to 6 o'clock. We will be getting your questions answered about how to get kids on track for learning and to stay on track for success. It's free, and you can ask any question that you would like. We're here to serve you and to make sure that you have the tools and strategies needed to make sure your kids are a success. And you can make sure that next generation is on a path to greatness. What stood out there is you're saying the ease, right? So sometimes we have parents who get really intense and they unfortunately turn their kids off from learning.
Yeah.
And so these are some strategies for helping.
There's a lot of hazing that has gone into education. Like we did it that way. I had to memorize all those Latin roots, so better get that done.
I like the term hazing. We don't think about it in that way.
Teachers do it, parents do it, and
it's hard. You got to go the hard way. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if hard is necessarily. I mean, sure, you learn things the hard way, but you learn things a lot of different ways. And I just liked experiential learning. I always figured like if kids were having an experience that touched them, somewhere, and then they wrote about it, that it would stick with them. And it didn't work for all these kids. Like a lot of kids, by the time they hit, later years of high school, they're programmed to learn in a certain way. And to all of a sudden be like told to experience things and ask questions and foreground their curiosity. They're like, no, I'll do that on my time, mister. But anyway.
No, you're right. It is something good about trying to get it in early for kids so that you could change that mindset. Some of them do try to break out of that, but I do encourage parents as the parents, right, who have that special sauce with their kids, that maybe they would be able to help break them out of it, or someone close to the family can break them out of that entrenched mindset about learning if they've had some negative experiences or something like that. So
yeah, especially kids who are like not good at school.
Yeah.
But all of them, like even the kids who are good at school, they're all playing a game, and there's so much like adult pleasing that goes into being a good student. Like you really have to run the gauntlet of all these personalities. And some of these teachers are going to be inspired teachers, and some of them are just going to be folks who are trying to, pay the rent. And so, all of that, it goes both ways. Teachers have to do a lot of emotional calculus with the 30 or 40 or 50 or however many of them are kids are in the classroom. But students have to negotiate their teachers a lot. And I don't know, whatever, that's kind of life. But I guess if there was a point here, it would be that as a parent, you talked about sort of the special sauce. If I was going to advocate for anything in the parent-child relationship, it would be like to have fun and to let the student take the lead in what they want to learn about. And like really kind of low key encourage that. Like definitely encourage it, because encouragement, I think, is hugely important, and people remember that and they treasure it. But if I don't know, like you and I were talking a little while ago, and we talked about skateboarding, which I always hated as a topic. That when students started reading about skateboarding, I was like, "Oh no, not skateboarding!" But I was wrong. I should have paid more attention to that, because that was that was a topic that a lot of kids just loved, and also like a huge thing in skateboard culture is learning, and a huge thing about the way they learn is they learn from their peers
and falling.
Right, like the most important one of the top 3 important lessons is I had to take a fall. So they were learning all kinds of, they were all kinds of learning great stuff, and I was just being an elitist snob like always, and totally missed an opportunity there. So I urge others who are, if you're listening to this, don't be an elitist snob about skateboarding, because it's a treasure trove of learning.
Yeah, it's something that we have to remember as teachers, especially the longer that we teach, and then maybe even as true for parents as well, is that they have a youth culture, right? Especially parents, of course, as teachers, we take like culturally responsive, we learn about this different thing. But of course, your parents, you provide the culture, right? But one thing you can't touch, you have to remember, is that youth culture, and try not to put it down. Like try to embrace what you can about it and help them, So like sometimes we make a big disconnect because we really put down what different elements of their youth culture.
Yeah, that's not
So,
going to help. That's not going to help. You can think it, but
yeah.
don't say it.
And,
It
and really,
not
yeah,
even be better not to think it. You know.
right. And sometimes we even like will forget. I remember my husband once was like, this kid came through with, his a speaker was loud with his phone blasting. And I was like, what's the difference between the boombox? And he's like, I don't know. It's like we forget, right? We forget, like, yeah, we had a
I don't
boombox
know.
back in the day. Did the kids have their loud little speaker? They might have a little speaker, they might have their phone or whatever. And it's like, that's annoying.
I would follow those kids around trying to Shazam like whatever they were playing, because those kids, like,
Yeah.
that must be
Hmm.
good if they want everybody to know that they're
Yeah.
part of it.
Sometimes we forget, but it's important for us to honor that part of them as well. And, try not to be too intense. I also tell parents, like, take a break if things get too intense, if you're trying to work with your kid.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Sure. You would do it with your printer, right? When your printer doesn't work, you're like, forget it. I'll just come back. I'm going to go get lunch. I'll come back and I'll figure out the printer later. So if you do it for your printer, do it for your
Absolutely.
kid. Sure.
Mhm.
Um, so I think a lot in terms of what can teachers and parents do that a video game can't do, because we
Mhm.
see these kids like on their video games like until the wee hours of the morning. They're really intense and
They
devoted to
are.
it. And I don't know, I could never quite crack the code on this, because there's so much discovery involved in these video games. Like, you got to
Yes.
figure this stuff out for yourselves. Like, you figure out, like, the whole game is like you figure out how to play it. And I was like, how come learning in school doesn't work like that? Because that's such a rich environment.
Yeah. The discovery. Mhm.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't. I if I could start like making wishes about how education worked in the future, and I think it's gonna. I think there's going to be a lot more incorporation of video game, but the technology and the psychology of it. Because I see that with like Duolingo.
Mhm.
Not some game. It incorporates elements of competition, and I don't know. It's not exactly a game, but it's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've made some really great points about how, exploration, free exploration, also like discovery, like, when they're loafing, they get to kind of follow what's interesting to them out there. And it may not, every same place, but, everyone may have locked into something different while they were out there loafing, observing the environment.
Yeah.
And, then it never stops, right? Like, as parents and teachers, we could think about how we could continue that for students, whatever it is, right? If it's something like skateboarding, where they're really challenging themselves to fall and do better and do challenging things. And then they'll also be able to see that transference, right? Between, like, okay, when I'm writing, I could mess up. When I'm doing math, I could mess up. Just like when I'm in skateboarding.
Well, I think the this idea of encouraging exploration is really important in the era of the chat bots, because now, like, any kid could turn in, that elusive beast, the 5 paragraph essay.
Right.
It's like, we got that for you. I got that for you, mister. Here's my 5 paragraph essay.
Yes.
Ain't it great? And I think the challenge for teachers now would have to be like, where are you? Where are you in that essay that
Yeah.
you had a chatbot write for you? Like, where are you, kid? And like, that would be, I would have like a giant rubber stamp, and it would just say, where are you? And have them, give them an A. Because what are you going to do? Like, not give them an A for the first draft? I give them an A for the first draft, and then say, okay, I want you to write a second draft, and I want you to talk about, like, where are you in this?
Yeah. Personal experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
Personal voice, those kind of
yeah.
words that you use in the way that you phrase. Hmm. Yeah. It makes sense. So what's coming? Do you have a project that's coming after your tennis, or you're just
What do you,
right now?
I was going to ask you, what should I do? What would you do if you were me? What would come after tennis?
Well, I think the railway, like, the LA, our metro, I know you have people listening across the country and even people in different countries, but the Los Angeles's trains or rail system, our metro, I don't even know what the term is. It's not a subway, but I guess it does go under.
It's hard.
Anyway, our train system, our train transit system is fairly new or being developed a little bit more. I guess there's some old parts, but it's being developed to go throughout the city. So I would say, travel it and see where it can take you. Like, I know I've taken it to like the Hollywood Bowl or whatever, like close to it. So, yeah, stuff like that. Like,
I like that. Push it to the limits. See where it goes. Some parts are crumbling. If you try to take the Amtrak down to San Diego, you're like, good luck, because you're going to go over a cliff. It used to be a beach. Now it's a cliff. Sorry about that.
Yeah, they're working on it. They've been working on it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm going to I was thinking of like crowdsourcing. Literally this morning, I was like, maybe you should just crowdsource the rest of August into September. Just like ask your friends, like, I got about a month of free time. What do you think I should do? Do you think I should do that? Or do you think that would be, people would look at that and be like, Mark needs help?
I think people would be interested in following your learning, your journey. And I was saying your learning, it is your learning journey, but it's also your writing journey. Right.
All right.
And so where can people find you on social media? And we can link some of your stories as well.
That would be great. Well, Gozonsky.com. It's just spelled the way it sounds.
Okay.
So Gozonsky.com, that's like the HQ. Like most of my links are right there, and it's just me, my name on Instagram. If you want to see me banging away on the drums or whatever, holding up things that I've grown in my garden.
All right, sounds good. We will link it in there for you. You can find him in the links for his articles as well as his social medias. It's been great talking to you.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Thank you again for joining us at the Falling for Learning podcast. We are here every week. Saturdays at 5 p.m. is when we drop our new episode. Please listen in every week for those strategies and tips to keep you and the next generation on track for success. You can also find us on YouTube by going to youtube.com/@fall4learning. Again, that's youtube.com/fall4learning. We really appreciate you, and we are here on a mission to make sure that next generation is on track for success and on track for learning. Thanks again. I'm TD Flinnaw. Have a wonderful week.